Hey guys, it's Ashley, and today's video is going to be on Daniel 12, the numeric verses, as well as some other numeric verses throughout the book of Daniel. All right, so we see quite a few verses that have numbers in them throughout the book of Daniel. We see technically 3 verses in Daniel 12. So we see an angel talk about time times a half a time. That's going to be the last 3.5 years. We also see the angel talk about 1,290 days. And then we also see the angel talk about 1,335 days. And you're like, well, what is this? In Daniel 9, we saw a 7-year time period. And then in Daniel 8, it should be 8, we see 2,300 years. And you're like, what are all these years? So let's figure it out. All right, so let's try to keep it simple. We're going to start with Daniel 9, okay? So in Daniel 9:27, it says how there's going to be a covenant that's made for a week. A week means 7 years. So let's just go back to like school and draw pictures because pictures help. Okay, actually, I don't want to make it quite so long. You can actually go get a piece of paper right now, and it doesn't even matter if you feel like a 10-year-old drawing, because mine looks like a 10-year-old drawing, but it's going to help you. So draw a line and just put 7 years in front of it. So I shouldn't have even put a line yet in the middle. I'm just jumping ahead of you guys. Just do this. Do this. Ignore that. Just do a line and put 7 years. Okay? Because we know that it says there's a covenant. It's for 7 years. But it says that halfway through, this Antichrist takes away sacrifices and offerings. So we can just go, okay, halfway through, sacrifices taken away. So we know that by scripture for sure, right? Boom. If we keep on reading, now we're going to jump to Daniel 12. Don't worry, I'll get to those 2,300 days in a second. In Daniel 12, it's going to be talking about a 1,290 day time period. So when we read that, specifically verse 11, it says, and from the time that the daily sacrifices is taken away, and we just saw, they're taken away at that halfway point. Daniel 12 continues and says, the abomination of desolation is set up. So that's how we know that the abomination of desolation happens halfway through. Daniel 9:27 says sacrifices are taken away halfway through. And then Daniel 12 says when they're taken, that abomination of desolation is set up. So we know the abomination of desolation happens halfway through. And part of that abomination of desolation is the sacrifices are taken away. Right? That image of the beast is set up. Revelation 13 will help you there. An image is going to be built. It's going to be able to breathe and speak, and it's going to be wowza. And it'll be mandated to worship it, but we will not. The mark of the beast will be implemented. Those are just some aspects of that abomination of desolation. Okay? But it says, if we keep reading Daniel 12, it says, and from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away, the abomination of desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days. All right, and you're like, okay, so this thing's going to last for 1,290 days. How does that fit with this? Well, if we do the math, 7 years in the Jewish calendar year is equivalent to 2,520 days. Half of 2,520 days is 1,260. So we know that the last half of the 7 years. We can also call it 1,260 days. In scripture, there's actually scripture that literally talks on the 1,260 days. There's other ways to talk about the last 3.5 years. Scripture will use 42 months. Scripture will use time times half a time. Okay, that means it's all that end. I see the Great Tribulation being the last 3.5. And I also see the time of trouble being the last 3.5. So when you see these numeric words in scripture, and then from my perspective, these phrases, you know it's the last 3.5 years. So when the angel says that the abomination of desolation is set up and it continues for the 1,290 days, that's 30 days after this core part. So we can put that on our timeline, okay? So I would just go ahead and draw a little segment. If we do that math, that's just 30 days, an extra 30 days after the 7 years, okay? And so how it's worded tells us that this lasts this long, and then it's done, it's cleansed, it's removed. So we can say the abomination of desolation, AD, is cleansed. I'm gonna spell wrong, but that's okay. So we know that happens right there. Okay, that happens right there. So I'm gonna kind of hopscotch around a little bit. Remember, we saw that, well, now you kind of already know the time, times, and half a time. So in Daniel 12, an angel's talking to another angel, like, how long will these wonders be? These wonders would be from Daniel 11, the time of trouble. And, the other angel says for a time, times, and half a time. So like, again, the core aspect of the tribulation is that last 3.5 years. However, that abomination desolation doesn't get completely cleansed until this point. Then the angel in Daniel 12 is going to expand, blessed are you who waits to the 1,335 days. So that's like another 45 days. So we can just do another little section, and 1,335, and that's an extra 45 days. And he's like, blessed are you if you make it to this point. So I talk about why you are blessed if you hang tight until here with my video that I just did. It's called Daniel 12, just Daniel 12. You could just zone to the very end. It's probably like the last 3 minutes that I talk on that. So you can go find out what that means by that video. But I just wanted you to see this on the graph, how we're just kind of getting the numeric verses on paper. So what about that 2,300 days? Okay. If you go look, it was Daniel 8. Good. So in Daniel 8, let's just look it up in our Bible. Daniel 8. Daniel 8. Daniel 8. I'm going to have another sip of my coffee. All right, so he has a vision. And towards the end of the vision, we have some more angels talking. Okay, it's all these angels, right? So Daniel in verse 13 says, then I heard a holy one speaking to another holy one. And he says, the angel says, how long will the vision be? So what vision was this? This would have been the vision of the ram and the goat, which would have been the Medo-Persia Empire and the Greek Empire. The Greek Empire splits into 4. The Antichrist rises up from one of those 4 splits of the Greek Empire and does lots of bad things. So the angel's like, how long will this be? And he's zoning in more towards what happens after that Greek Empire splits and the Antichrist does some things. And he's actually going to expand on that. How long will it be concerning the daily sacrifices, the transgression of desolation, the giving of both the sanctuary and the host to be trampled underfoot? So the angel's like, how long will that be? So friendly reminder, the vision itself was of the Medo-Persian Empire and the Greek Empire. Greek Empire wins with the Medo-Persia. And then that Greek Empire was strong. Alexander the Great splits into 4, okay? And so we have some different dynasties. The main 2 was going to be that Seleucid dynasty and that Ptolemy dynasty. The Antichrist will rise from one of the four. I'm thinking it's going to be the Seleucid dynasty, kind of like the Syria region. Anyways, it says that an evil one's going to rise from one of these four. I see it here. And he's going to do those four things. There's going to be concern with sacrifices. There's going to be that transgression of desolation. That's the abomination of desolation. There'll be the giving of the sanctuary. I see that as the giving of the temple over to the Antichrist. And then the host be trampled underfoot. I see that as Christians dying and even Jews dying, okay? So the angel's like, how long will all that be? Like those four aspects of that evil little horn is going to talk about the little horn. That's the Antichrist. Like how long will that take place? How long will there be concern with the sacrifices, that abomination of desolation? He's called it the transgression of desolation, the trampling of the host, the giving of the sanctuary. And the other angel says for 2,300 days. But now that we have Daniel 12, we know that that abomination desolation is set up here. So that core aspect of it is here. It's removed here. So what we do is we have to rewind 2,300 days. Okay. So again, I'll repeat myself. The angel says, how long will it be concerning the sacrifices, that transgression of desolation, the sanctuary to be given over to the Antichrist, and then the host be trampled underfoot? So we know for sure that abomination, desolation happens here. We know it's removed here. And so the concern with the sacrifices and the some aspects of the abomination, desolation, the host be trampled underfoot. We know it's removed here. We know it's done here. So we rewind 2,300 days. And if you do the math, it puts you about 8 or 9 months into the 7-year tribulation. So that 2,300 days goes right here. So we know that the core abomination of desolation is that the image getting set up, the Antichrist saying that he is God in the temple of God, that goes there. However, back with that verse 13 of chapter 8 of Daniel, the concern of sacrifices, that's probably what's going to happen right here. So there'll be sacrifices and offerings happening over here because they get taken away here, but there's a concern about them a little bit in. So we can look for that. We can look for the Antichrist doing something. He's not taking them away yet, but there could be some type of defilement, some type of half the mask just kind of coming up and out. Of course, he takes his full mask off here, but he's going to do something here. There could be possibly the host being trampled underfoot. So it's going to have to be kind of subtle, though, because this will be a time of peace and safety. So if there's bloodshed, it'll have to be kind of secretive. But there could be bloodshed, definitely, for the Christians. People aren't going to like us standing up for like what is right. There'll be final peace, and we'll be like, no, like we don't follow this man. There could be bloodshed. The giving of the sanctuary, I don't see that part happening. So there's some type of something with the sacrifices and maybe some people dying right around here. So there you go, guys. There you go. Hopefully that'll help you. Because we want to understand where these numeric verses happen in the timeline. We don't just want to be like, well, they happen here because Ashley said so. No, you want to be like, they happen here because I've done the math. It takes a while to do this and get this down, but I promise you, once you do it a few times, it will stick. If you have any thoughts or questions, you can let me know. All right, bye guys.